We've got two astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. They've gone up into space, which what they thought was an 8-day mission. They're now being told that they could be stuck in orbit until February. Tim, can you tell me what's happened?
Oh, it's unbelievable. You have the stories of when you might have missed the bus or you've missed the train and you might have to wait 15 minutes. These are going to have to wait a lot longer because they're stuck out in space. But it looks like the NASA fix is going to send another aircraft to fix the aircraft, which has... I'll report this, and no funny laughter from you, Giles. Thruster failure. So it needs its thruster fixed. Given our dance moves, they might want to call us and see what happens there. But it's unable to get the current crew back to Earth. So
I don't know why you're smiling for this. This is my worst nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, can you imagine these two extraordinary people who are actually trained astronauts? They're military people. But nonetheless, they've gone up expecting to be there for a week, and they may be there for many months. Also, with an uncertain outcome. I mean, they're heroic, in my view.
Well, one person that does know about being stuck in orbit is Helen Sharman. Now, Helen Sharman became the first British astronaut in May 1991, aged 27, when she spent 8 days orbiting the Earth. Welcome to This Morning, Helen.
This is so exciting.
It's amazing. A real space person.
Good morning.
Hi.
How are you?
Good morning. Thank you. Lovely to be with you this morning.
Oh, Helen, I mean, these guys are stuck in space. Can you just give me your overview of what's happened?
So the Starliner spacecraft, which is a new one developed by Boeing, on its arrival at the International Space Station, had some problems with its thrusters, these little rocket engines around the back side of it that, basically steer it. It can't really be fixed. There's been a lot of effort going on between Boeing and NASA because they really, really want to get this spacecraft back to Earth with the astronauts inside it, because then hopefully it can be certified to take future crews to International Space Station. And then they don't just have to rely on SpaceX's Crew Dragon to do that on the American side. So the thing is, NASA's very concerned, of course, because it's learned a lot of lessons since we had that awful Columbia tragedy when the space shuttle Columbia actually broke up in the atmosphere on its return to Earth. So NASA's taking a very, very risk-averse view. Boeing's saying, well, actually, we know so much about this spacecraft. We don't think it's going to suffer problems coming back, but there's lots of tests that have been done that they know a lot about it. But this is the thing now. There's people within NASA saying, we do have an alternative way of getting these astronauts back to Earth. And given that we've got actually a few alternatives, why should we risk them coming back in a spacecraft that we can't be absolutely sure is going to provide for their safety?
Helen, you go for 8 days, though, and how do you know the space station can cope with you, can feed you, can accommodate you for that length of time? That's the fear. That's your fear, Giles, right?
Absolutely.
It's like this from 8 days to 6 months.
No, there's plenty of food. So there's always a very, very good backup supply of food, because, of course, there might be a problem with a future cargo spacecraft. So they have to make sure that there's plenty of food supplies. And they typically have about 4 months worth of food supplies. They generate their own oxygen on board space station, and they recycle most of their own water with a little bit of extra water from Earth every now and again. So in terms of the supplies, that's not really an issue. And every couple of months, there is a new supply spacecraft. In fact, one's recently docked this week, and that will have taken up additional supplies for these two, knowing now that it's very likely that they're not going to return to Earth on this Starliner spacecraft. It's still a possibility that they might come back within a couple of weeks, but we're thinking less and less likely now. How did they know when they were going that yes, they might have been spending what's already now 60-odd days, and yes, could well be much longer if one of the scenarios, which seems to be the one that will have the least impact on the rest of the scheduling, is that they send the next spacecraft that goes, the next SpaceX spacecraft goes with 2 people instead of 4. And then when it returns to Earth in February, it can return with Butch and Suni on it, as well as those first 2.
Helen, I've got to ask you one question. When you're looking at Earth, like you're up in space and you're looking at our beautiful blue planet, when you leave your Earth and you come back down, do you feel totally differently about our planet?
I think everybody has some sort of, let's say, thought process that you go through, even if you just go on holiday, right, to another part of the Earth. It's when you look back on the life that you've left behind. It gives you a different kind of perspective, doesn't it? You see it through different eyes almost. And I did the same in space. And it was looking back on the planet itself. And when we look back, we talked about, of course, together, we talked about our families, our friends that we'd left behind down there. Yeah. And when I returned to Earth, I realised that what I had not thought about in space was any of those material items, the physical stuff we aspire to own so much of and show off about quite often. And that really put material items into perspective compared with the value of humans and human relationships.
Oh, thank you, Helen. Thank you. Yeah, I would love to go for dinner with you, but yeah.
I know, right?
Yes.
Thank
Take
you,
you on
Helen.
a trip.
Oh, yeah.
You might go for dinner and don't come back for 6 months.
Well, look, do you know what?
But what an impressive human being.
What an impressive human being.
Amazing.
And I can imagine, when you go up in space and come back down, it doesn't matter where you go on Earth, every single place will feel like home.
Yes, right.
What happens with Butch and Sunny? They got on to the space thing, thinking I can cope for a week with you, but then you find you're there for 6 months with somebody you don't get on with.
Wait, Giles, I think I've got a text message from my missus asking when am I going to go on the spaceship. A bit dodgy, that one.
Helen, thank you so much for
you,
joining us
Helen,
today.
amazing.
Great to meet
stuff.
you.
I once interviewed many years ago.